Hello everyone and welcome to this month's DIY project. This month is going to be a really simple one, so it is perfect out there for any of you people wanting to try DIY for the first time, or even if you're a little bit more experienced. I am going to be showing you how to make a trug out of a single pallet, and this is going to be a trug that's on wheels, so it's going to be perfect for all of your harvests and also for carrying tools to and from the allotment, or even just around your garden. Here are all the materials and the equipment we're going to need. So first up we have some basic drill bits and tools. We've got some screws, we've got a couple of different lengths in here. We've got a jigsaw, or you could use a skill saw. I'm not going to be using the mitre saw today. I could use it, but actually the jigsaw and the skill saw are going to be a lot better for this. Otherwise you could use a handsaw, but it's just going to take a little bit longer. So we've got our impact driver, our drill, we've got an old rusty square, we've got a tape measure, we have some lovely twine that we're going to be using as a handle, I've got my safety glasses, I have got my battery powered sander, I have some paint. So this is the seagrass paint that I paint absolutely everything in down the allotment and find it absolutely brilliant. And then also we've got these caster wheels. So these, I did order some online, but they didn't come. So good old dad found these in his garage. So you want some heavy duty ones, because you've got the weight of the pallet and then you've got the weight of whatever you're going to be putting in there. But they're not too expensive. I think you can get them for around £15. And then we have our pallet. So you can do this in two ways. I'm going to want a big trug for all my harvests, so I'm going to cut my pallet in half down here. If you did want a smaller trug, you could do exactly the same as what I'm going to do now, but cut it down there and then there, so you'd have a quarter of a pallet as your trug. I have cleared the bench and I have put my pallet up here. So I've put it facing up with the slats going across, and now I'm just going to draw out a line that I'm going to use as a guide for cutting. So I've just got a straight edge, and we just want this line to be in line with the vertical pallet that goes underneath. Simple as that. And then I'm gonna get my skill saw and cut through this. So as I said, you can do this with a jigsaw, or you could do it with a handsaw. And there we go, we have cut through all of these here, and now we're going to turn it over. So I'm going to cut through this one and this one, but this one here I'm going to prise off. So I'm just going to grab my square again, so we've got a nice line to follow. And I've got my hammer, and now I'm just going to try and take this middle piece off here. I'm going to try and leave these blocks of wood in place, and Olive's going to help me do this as well. She's an expert at taking pallets apart. One done. I have got the pallet apart, and we have the one section here. This is going to be the base for our trug, and then we've got these pips here that we've taken off the other side, and these are going to be for our fillers and put around the edge to stop all your veg falling out. So I've taken off, we have two blocks here and here. I've taken them off. These are actually screwing or nailing this into the blocks. We still need these nails here. So the best thing that you can do is hammer these in one direction flat, and then hammer them backwards the other direction, and they will snap off. And now it's time to get constructing. So again, with all of these projects that I do with pallets, it all depends on what pallet size you've got. So these are the offcuts from the other half of the pallet. So I'm just going to position them on here like that, cut them to size and screw them on. This one is slightly longer here, so this one's definitely going to need cutting down. Whoop. Which is probably a good thing, because as I was taking the pallets apart, this one split out at one end, which does happen. So if you don't feel too confident with the pallets, do get 2 pallets just in case. But yeah, that's going to go like that. Then we're going to use these smaller pieces to fill in here, and then we're also going to rip these down and they're going to fit into here, so then that's going to stop all your veg pouring out the bottom. First things first, I'm just going to take off this end up here because I've got enough excess wood for that, and that will just get rid of all those holes from the nails. I'm just going to grab a little square, mark it up, and then I'm going to use the skill saw. From this point to this point, that's 790. So now this is going to go like that. Now when I screw this into place, I'm not going to screw it down to the base there. I'm going to screw it just so then it's just like that, just on that bottom one. So I'm going to screw it just on that bottom one there, so that there's no gap there, and then it means that it's more level with the top. So I'm going to screw that together now. I'm going to use my pilot drill, as always. Got a pilot drill set up here. It's got a 5mm drill bit in. I'm just going to put 3 holes in this. That'll be plenty. I'll do the same on the other end. Like that. Gonna grab my screws. So these are, oh, I'm not even sure what the length they are. Let me check. They are 60mm screws. So they're going to be absolutely fine to go through the thickness of that wood, and then they're going to give a really secure fixing into the chipboard ends. If, like me, you're doing it by yourself, it's going to be a bit hard to hold that up in the air. So what you can do with the other end is just pack it up and your offcut so it's in roughly the right position, and then pop it there like that. All looks good at the bottom to me. Do the other end, and there it is. I've just turned this over because I'm going to show you now how to do these 2 ends. So now we've done the ends on inside, we're going to do this one. So this piece of wood, it's a bit loose in there, purely because obviously all the pallets are all different sizes, but it's not going to affect it unless you're carrying very tiny things. Then I wouldn't worry about it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to slot this in so it's flush, which means we need to cut this to size. So all you need to do is measure the opening here and then cut that to length, and then I shall show you how I'm going to screw it on. There we go. So that's been cut in there, it fits lovely and snugly, and now I'm just going to screw some screws through the top of this wood into this wood below, and that's going to give a gap down here, but it's better to have a gap at the top of your trug rather than at the bottom. I'm going to put some pilot holes in. I'm going to do 3 holes. It needs to be quite close to the edge. And just get your wood in place. Just going to wedge this in place with some wood chip that I've got on the floor, and that will stop it coming down. Again, we're going to use some fairly decent sized screws. Grab my drill. that's it. Now our trug has got sides on both ends, and now we just need to fill these middle sections. So we're going to do that with these pieces of wood here. So we do need to rip these down. So you need to measure the distance in between all of your slats and then cut these to size. So I'm going to do that, and I shall come back before I cut them. So I have measured all my pieces to the width, and I've just done a measurement there, and then joined it up with a straight edge. Now don't worry about being too accurate on this. You're better off cutting them smaller than they need to be than larger, and that's going to give you a bit of airflow in between the slats, because what I do is I harvest all my vegetables and then chuck this straight into the garage with them still in. So you do want a bit of airflow in there, and also obviously the wood is bowed, it's not straight, so you're never going to get a perfect finish when you're working with pallets. So I'm going to use my jigsaw to cut this. You can use a skill saw, you can use a normal hand saw. Just be careful, because obviously you are taking small pieces off. If you don't feel too confident doing this, what I'd suggest you do is get some G-clamps and clamp it to a table, leaving your cutting area overhanging, and that means that you can use both hands to use your tools to cut it, rather than sort of trying to hold it with one hand, cutting it with another. So yeah, that's the best way if you're not too confident. And I shall get cutting. There we have it. That is all the cutting done. So they are all the filler pieces, and now we're just going to screw these into place. So I'm going to put a pilot hole in each end, 2 screws, and screw them through with these shorter screws here, so they're going to be plenty long enough to go into the pallet underneath. And then that's our frame done. And there it is. Everything is lined in the bottom here and screwed in place, and now we need to make 2 holes in here, and this is for our twine to go through, and that's going to create a little handle for us to pull this along by. So I'm going to measure out distance of probably about, I don't know, probably about 80 mil, and then I'm going to work out the middle to make 2 holes with my drill, and I'm going to set up the drill bit to match the twine that I'm using. I have given my trug a coat of paint which is going to protect it lovely, and now I'm going to put the casters on the bottom. So I've just placed the casters so then they are square with each of the corners, and this means that when we drill down through them, we're going to be drilling down into this big block here rather than just say the thickness of the wood, which means we can use some quite chunky screws. And then we've also got these washers that we're going to use to stop the screws going all the way through these holes. So I'm going to put 2 in each caster, which will be plenty for what we're going to be using this for, and I'll be using a drill pilot hole as well. Let's get on with that. So just make sure you put them at diagonal ends. Get a screw, get the washer on it. Now you can use bigger washers to make this easier. But as I do like to recycle everything, I use what's lying around. Let's do this one. And there we have it. Casters are all on. We need to paint the inside of this, string it up here, and we are all done. And there it is. We have finished painting it, and now I just need to put the rope in there for the handle. and then we're done. We can start harvesting and carrying everything around. And there it is. All finished with the thick twine, and then I've loaded it up. Olive, do you want to get in? Are you going to come home with me? Let's see how it wheels. Look at that. Perfect. Thank you for watching, everyone. I really hope you've enjoyed this month's DIY project. Next month I am going to be getting a shed, so I am going to show you how to do things like putting on guttering and even installing a living roof.